Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, can your neighbors extend your life expectancy? We talk about the impacts of new urbanism on health. Later in the program, building an emerald trail with less green. We discuss how the project is moving forward after the feds rescinded the largest grant in city history. But first, it's been more than 2 years since the U.S. Surgeon General reported on the impacts of loneliness, from anxiety and depression to dementia and heart disease. Research has shown that one surprising remedy is the accidental connections created by the deliberate community design. Here to discuss it is Joel Embry, real estate developer and creator of the Amelia Park community in Fernandina Beach. Good morning, Joel.
Thank you. Good morning.
So this week you are hosting a conference of so-called new urbanist developers, Wednesday through Saturday of this week. It's the National Town Builders Association.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about what that group does, and what you hope to show them when they come to town.
New urbanism is the basis of the organization. We are a group of 150 now, developers who've been doing new urbanism since about 2005, and we organized a group to basically share our secrets. How do we don't do this is a lot of what we do.
Right.
So it has led us to all sorts of new ideas that we've shared together. So the NTBA is the place to come to if you're interested in becoming a new urban developer and you want to learn how to do it, and also how to improve what you're doing. So it's always been inward focused.
How do you explain new urbanism to people who aren't familiar with the concept, or perhaps aren't aware if they've seen it?
New urbanism is basically a neighborhood that may make you think you've stepped back into a time during or before World War II.
Mm-hmm.
The principles of neighborhood development in Jacksonville, Avondale, San Marco, Atlantic Beach, these are neighborhoods that we love, and the principles that built those neighborhoods were not as tight as we have our zoning today. This was the nature of how you build a neighborhood so that people get along and have the services they need and the care they need, et cetera. So we have adopted, through some very good architects and planners who did the research, to bring those principles back. So the walkability, the connection of different types of dwellings, so that's not all monoculture. It's people of all sorts, and that is one of the major principles. But the walkability, the dwelling types, there are places to work, shop, play. We at Amelia Park, we actually have a YMCA and a church, and a school. So things that you would see in a World War.
And a bookstore, restaurant.
A very good one, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
It's become the cultural center of the island, I think.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's Story and Song Books. We've had them on before. So Amelia Park is, I guess, at this point, pretty much built out, but it is a project that has been with you and certainly in your mind for decades. Tell us about how the idea for it originated and what the concept is there.
I had come to Jacksonville as a banker. I worked for Barnett Bank and was doing a lot of real estate work in the trust department. So I got an offer to join a developer in Fernandina Beach who was planning his retirement. I joined him and worked through that a few years, and then created my own company. That led me to a long-term marketing. I was a broker, I was a developer, and I did neighborhoods that were pretty much standard suburban neighborhoods, but in a very beautiful and wonderful place. So I was a part of the Summer Beach project early on, and learned a lot from those developers. They were seasoned folks, and so it led me to do a number of neighborhoods, and even some of the repurposing of the buildings on Center Street.
Yeah.
So I was all of the pieces of the neighborhood. I was doing the pieces, but not together. So I then was introduced by my parents, who retired, to the Panhandle, And my dad called me up and he said, "You need to come see this. Somebody has built a little shack on the beach. I don't know what it is." And it was the first buildings of Seaside, Florida.
Seaside, and that is a kind of a now, certainly statewide, but, also renowned in other places around the world for the design, the concept. It's a lot of people know it through the Truman Show, that
Right,
film,
right.
but it was one of the first in Florida. Really, I guess
It
it was
was.
the first.
It was the first complete neighborhood that was designed with what have now, it was traditional neighborhood development at that time.
Mhm.
There's a new brand, we as brokers and developers, we sell things. And so we all have adopted the name New Urbanism, but traditional neighborhood development started at Seaside,
A
truly.
shack on the beach is an interesting way to describe what
Yeah,
this prestigious, and really high end community. So
yeah.
it looked different from the beginning.
It looks like an old-fashioned cottage.
Mhm.
It's wooden. It's got a front porch. It's got a pitched roof. It's got, windows that are rectangular and vertical, and it's standard old-fashioned. You can go look at it in any neighborhood that has bungalow development or any kind of small cottage development in pre-war to World War II neighborhoods.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about new urbanism. And in just a minute, we're going to be talking about health impacts that new urbanism design can have on individuals. If you'd like to join the conversation, you can give us a call at 904-549-2937. You can also email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org, or you can tag us on social media. Joel Embry, so there has long been sort of anecdotal evidence that living in a community that is designed according to some of these principles has a, a beneficial effect for people who live there, certainly in terms of creating a sense of community. But there's more than just anecdotal evidence at this point. Is that right?
We've been operating for a long time on anecdotal evidence alone. We observe it in our meetings. We share what we see it going on in our neighborhoods, and the idea arose. I mean, just from conversation, that people actually got to know each other easier in the neighborhoods that we were building under the traditional neighborhood principles than the standard automobile dominated neighborhoods and shopping center, etc., of the suburban style of development. So what we observed is that the people were and the residents who moved into these neighborhoods got to know each other easier through alleys. We have a lot of them have alleys still. That was the old fashioned idea. When you take the garbage out, you meet somebody. You take the garbage out at the same time every day. You get to know them. You talk to them, and over time you find out that you have things in common. Do those things together for a while, and you meet people that they know, then they sort of build that as a group, and over time you get this connectivity, which leads you to a point where you can learn who to trust, who to rely on, who are your good friends. If you live with your good friends in a neighborhood for about 5 years or so, I think you become a community. You belong. So that's really the principle. But we selling that, telling someone that, I got caught dead, several times behind a microphone like this trying to explain it, and said, and I was asked one day, "Where's your data?" And I just gave him some kind of blow off remark, and ran from it because I had no data. So I was ready to get the data after years of not having it. I wanted to prove it along with my fellows. So Jenny and I went to FSU and said
That
we'd like to study it.
Jenny's your wife.
Yeah, Jenny Mark is my wife, and I said we would like to study it at the School of Social Sciences at FSU before we could even turn the page to research it. And we had 5 faculty members who just jumped on it. We're really eager to do it. The Surgeon General issued a report and said that uh, neighborhood connectivity, social connectivity, neighborliness, all of these ideas actually can make us healthier, certainly happier, and live longer. And through that, I went back to the
And that was based on research. That was based on data.
325 references. We no longer needed to go search the literature for it. It had been done. So we received a gift from FSU, from the Surgeon General, and we have had the opportunity now to share that, and we found the people who generated that. The Surgeon General is the person who brought it to the public's attention. The people who found 325 references were the people I wanted to talk to.
Uh-huh.
So I found the person who was the head researcher.
I want to ask you, I mean, that report is coming at the same time the Surgeon General is warning of a, quote, epidemic of loneliness in this
Yes.
country. And we sort of alluded to that at the beginning. This is something that's not just occasional loneliness or even isolation, but it really is a profoundly um, harmful
Yes.
factor. People are
Right.
suffering, physical ailments from it, and a great number of the population say that they experience it. So, what is the nexus between that research and the information about neighborhoods?
We have the NTBA has had this conversation, and this is the first time that we've gathered together to make an official examination at this roundtable. We meet twice a year. So our roundtable is focused on the learning more about the evidence, and the speakers are the research director for the Surgeon General's report, as well as another global study that is being taken, a 5-year study that is in its second year now.
That's the global
The global
flourishings.
flourishing, right? So we've got these most knowledgeable people, I think, in the world on these subjects to come share with us how it works, what it is, what should we really know, and then ask the question. We are asking ourselves, the members, what are we going to do with this? We've already been producing neighborhoods that are healthier, happier, and people live longer and love being there and don't go away. I'm in the business of helping them stay in their homes with the telehealth and the data management and all. That's came out of the effort to keep to provide the means to stay in your home as long as you want to.
One of the focuses of Amelia Park from the beginning was aging in place. And
Yes.
that's something that can be very difficult for people. Explain what it was that you were looking to build to make that easier or even possible.
The principles of new urbanism, the walkability, the connectivity to neighbors, people that have your well-being at their interest. This is the principle that we're is the backbone. The telehealth and the services that we've discovered, we call them the means of longevity extension. This is how do you live longer where you want to be, and if you can do that and not disrupt your comforts of home and in the house you live in, that you know very, very well, and have to move closer to children usually is what's happening, or assisted living. There,
Right.
more institutional kinds of living, and give up your friendships. That's where we're really working.
We've got a call from John in Riverside. Good morning, John. Go ahead.
Good morning. I'm calling from my front porch in Riverside, where I have lived for 41 years. One of the things that I enjoy most about Riverside is the mix of people that are here. I'm 78, so there are old people, young people. The neighborhood has changed and gentrified. There are obvious signs of wealth, expensive dogs, small children, things like that. But within a couple of blocks of here is a more working class, more racially diverse. My neighborhood is racially diverse. It's one of the reasons I moved here 41 years ago. So it has all that. I used to work for the phone company, and I would go down Argyle Drive in Orange Park, and each little cul-de-sac would cut off. They were developing. Now, the prices are from 20, 30 years ago. But one cutoff would say from the 170s. The next would say from the 180s. The next from the 190s. And I thought these people are being segregated by their income levels. and probably by their age groups. And so they have no idea how people at a higher or lower income level live. And so they're going to be limited to stereotypes about poorer or richer or older or younger people. So, there are just so many advantages of one of the things is if I want to go for a walk to exercise, I just open my front door and go for a walk. I don't have to drive to a mall.
Yeah.
My life is right here. I'm within walking distance of grocery stores, medical care, restaurants, all sorts of entertainment venues.
Yeah.
I love Riverside.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Your thoughts?
John, you and I have a lot in common. And what you're saying is what we study. Exactly. You're giving us a testimonial of what neighborhoods can do for your well-being and your enjoyment of living.
So let's talk about, he's describing these cul-de-sac subdivisions that are, perhaps somewhat segregated by income. But they also, the design of those types of neighborhoods really destroyed the connectivity, whether you're trying to take a bike ride, you can't go from cul-de-sac to cul-de-sac or even neighborhood to neighborhood. They don't connect. Some of them are gated. Some of them you can't access. But that is the, predominant design, certainly in Northeast Florida and probably all of Florida.
Across the country.
So why is that? If there are elements that people like about walkability, if they like the connectivity, what are the barriers?
Well, first of all, let's say that that connectivity and diversity of building types is a major principle of new urbanism. In the first phase of Amelia Park, we created 9 different building types, residential building types, plus civic, church, YMCA, and a little town center where you can go do your daily shopping. We were across the street. We were lucky to have that. But take me back. I sort of took your question and ran with it.
Yeah, just sort of what the barriers are. I'm guessing that some of them are logistical zoning, but cost as well.
The cost gets driven a lot by the density and zoning allowances. Multifamily, you might be able to buy a less expensive dwelling in multifamily because the land cost is being shared with more. But in the way that we approached our neighborhood, the diversity is really the social diversity is just as John said, and the cost, the pricing. We have a wide array of pricing. One of our goals was to be a middle market price, where Seaside had escalated into it was at the Gulf of Mexico. So,
But these are in some ways can be victims of their own success, these neighborhoods, because like Seaside certainly became enormously popular. Amelia Park is enormously popular. And I would venture to say that some of the places that began as quote unquote, kind of smaller affordable units are less affordable than they once were.
one of the goals of Amelia Park, one of the objectives, was to build a middle market, pricing so that it was accessible to more people. And we did. We offered our first homes. You could buy a home for $130,000 in 1998. So we saw it work as we unfolded more types. The people who bought earlier are selling their houses for twice as much as they paid us for them.
Right.
So the market has continued on the resale side to press it up. And a study was recently done comparing Amelia Park and a neighborhood across the street on the other side of Sadler Road that I developed. So the same developer, same neighborhood, same location, and the pricing of Amelia Park, the value of the homes in Amelia Park has shot up so much more than the other neighborhood, where the only difference really is the design.
Is so interesting. And you mentioned zoning. Has that issue gotten any easier now that there are these living examples of these communities that planning commissions and city managers can look at and say, well, it works. We don't need to be as nitpicky about allowing, an overall changing to the zoning that maybe messes with the set formula.
I would like to say yes, but I've got to say not so much. It's hard to get within a community if there is an example that works, like Fernandina Beach. You've got a historic district that is actually the inspiration of the plan of the principles that we used at Amelia Park. You've got two neighborhoods that work that way. Now there are other neighborhoods that are being developed on Amelia Island that reflect those principles. So when the ice is broken by someone who's willing to go seek 24 variances, then you've got an example. But it's community by community, unless there are a lot of people who are traveling and have an opportunity to visit neighborhoods like Seaside, which are really a resort neighborhood. So you can go rent a house and play town, for a week at the beach.
Mm-hmm.
So you can bring that back home. But I would tell you that the surveys that we've done, the NTBA and others have done, say that we're about 20% of the country's demand is for neighborhoods like this.
Mm-hmm.
So you got 70 to 80% that want the suburban, that would say they would prefer it. Maybe they don't know the difference, maybe not seen it, but when you get down to it, why would you not, if you want to, I've been asked, why do you do this when you've got 70% of the market says it doesn't like it? My answer is because about 3% of the buildings that are going, neighborhoods that are being built are new urbanism. So the imbalance between supply and demand for new urbanism is extreme. So when you build a little bit of it and you want to be average price, you can't. The market takes over.
We're talking about the health and community benefits of new urbanism and the design of these communities. If you'd like to join the conversation, you can give us a call at 904-549-2937. We've got a call from Tricia in Ponte Vedra. Good morning, Tricia. Go ahead.
Good morning, Ann. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Tricia.
I love this idea, and I think that I agree with you 100% about the importance of community. But it seems to me that you're building a community that is still going to be governed by an HOA and is going to, at some point, eventually discourage creativity, discourage people, different types of people moving into a community because they don't want to be told when they can paint their houses or when they can put fences up. How do you build a community that allows people to move in and, for lack of a better term, just be themselves?
That's a great question.
It is, and it's something that I am observing because we've turned over the neighborhood some time back. The developers are gone. The HOA is in charge of the neighborhood, and there are questions that are raised about what the future is and how to change things to people's likes and dislikes through the HOA. I don't see this happening in any substantial, making any substantial changes in Amelia Park. There's some thing you get into an argument about what the townhouse shutters, what color the townhouse shutters could be. Those kinds of architectural review board questions. But most of the residents of Amelia Park, and I don't live there, so I observe. But the residents prefer maintaining the kind of neighborhood vibe and neighborhood enjoyment, much like, I would say, probably more like a Atlantic Beach vibe. That's that it's a small town in a bigger city,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where the Amelia Park residents like to live. I don't know how it'll go in the future. There have been moves at Amelia Park to change things radically, but they don't really change what we've already built. It's there.
I could talk to you all day about this, but it is fascinating. I hope that the conference brings a lot of good information to the people that attend. Joel Embry, developer of Amelia Park, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
All right. Up next, after Congress guts funding for the Emerald Trail, we look at the path ahead. Welcome back. Well, a plan to build 30 miles of linear park in Jacksonville took a big hit after the president's big, beautiful bill clawed back what was the largest grant in city history. But project managers say the funding loss is not fatal to the Emerald Trail. And here to give us an update is Kay Ehas. She's the Chief Executive Officer of Groundwork Jacksonville, which is managing the project. Kay, welcome back.
Thank you.
So we actually had you on in March of last year celebrating this enormous federal grant, $147 million. And that money has been rescinded.
Correct.
That was a vote of Congress after a request from the president. So there's a lot of people worried that this is going to stop or stall progress on the Emerald Trail.
Which I understand they would think that, but it's not. So we are breaking ground on segment 2, Hogan Street, for the core downtown on Thursday. We are about to issue an RFQ to take the Riverside link to 100% design. So the local option gas tax is going to fully fund segments 3 and 4, so the next 2 segments.
Mm-hmm.
And then while we are working on those, we'll be looking for funds to fill the gap for 6, 7, and 8.
So we have a map of the project as it's designed currently. And as we mentioned, this is, an extensive park project. It connects 14 historic communities to downtown. It includes 16 schools in its footprint, 3 hospitals, 3 colleges, 21 parks. And so for people who are watching our live stream, we are looking at a map that basically is the updated version, most recent version of the Emerald Trail's progress. And we could see, the S line was existing. That is there. There are a number of, green dotted lines that show what's planned. And then there are the ones that are actively under construction. I think it's the ones that are not those that people might have questions about. So there are some delays you'd expect in certain areas. I'm thinking of the Mixontown, Springfield East Side area. Are they going to be seeing delays in when the Emerald Trail arrives?
So Mixontown is segment 10, which is McCoy's Creek,
Okay.
and that is totally underway and fully funded.
Okay.
It's really segments 6, 7, and 8. So 6 is connecting to McCoy's Creek. It's
Mhm.
the Robinson's Addition neighborhood. 7 is Durkeeville and Newtown. And then 8 is the East Side and Springfield.
Okay. And I'm just going to say, those are, historically neglected neighborhoods
Absolutely.
that I think already would say left behind in a lot of construction projects, left behind in consolidation. How do you manage the perceptions that they're going to be left behind once again?
Well, what I would say is that Groundwork Jacksonville is totally committed to getting the entire Emerald Trail completed. And personally, one of my worries had always been, once we get out of downtown, will elected officials be as committed to getting the ones done, 6, 7, and 8 specifically, just again, because it's kind of not in downtown anymore or as close to downtown, even though, as you know, it's very connected to downtown. It needs to be.
Mhm.
So that has always been one of my worries. And I would say that, JTA is our funding partner on the last segments with the gas tax and what was the federal grant, and they're as committed as we are. So in some ways, the federal grant would have had us working on 5 all at the same time, which would have been a really heavy lift. And so this way, we're just gonna the project was moving before we ever had gas tax dollars or federal grant. So we just are committed to continuing to keep moving. And there's plenty of time to secure additional funding to do that. And our goal would be to also start designing segment 6 after we do segment 4, because shovel-ready projects are more likely to get federal and state funding.
Tell us what happened to this grant. What was it about the language of the grant that caught the attention of the federal government? And why was it that this grant, which was granted a couple of years ago, wasn't ever delivered and was in a position to be clawed back?
There were, I think, maybe over 100. It was the Neighborhood Access Equity Grant was the name. And so I believe it had a lot to do with the current administration's perspective on DEI. About 25 of them were approved by the Biden administration, and those continued to get funded. But the majority of them were rescinded. And that's a process that, you send in your information to the federal highway. They then have to review it, comment back. And so it was, I think, a timing issue.
I think that there has been some reporting from our colleagues at Action News that have suggested that JTA somehow dropped the ball by not getting this grant signed and finalized. Do you find fault with the fact that it wasn't sort of signed and finalized and perhaps therefore I think the reporting has been perhaps maybe more vulnerable to being rescinded?
What I would say is that Groundwork Jacksonville is not an expert on federal transportation grants. So I don't feel like I can speak to that, really.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's a lengthier process than maybe typical grants are. But that's a question for JTA.
Okay, very good. And so this, you said it's going to be an ongoing effort to find funding. There is this gas tax that is going to fund it as it continues, and there are groundbreakings and projects in the works that lie ahead. Who are you going to be leaning on for funding? Where do you turn? Is it the community? Is it foundations? Is it the local government?
So construction of those trail segments happen to be the longest trail segments in the system, and so they're going to be more expensive. Private funding is not going to cover that because you're talking about, I don't know, maybe $120 million. So I think we are going to be looking at federal funding. Congressman Rutherford's on record that he believes federal money is important for the project, but it may just come in smaller tranches. So we're going to be working with them. I recently toured Congressman Bean's aide, and they're all totally committed to getting the project
Yeah,
done.
it's worth noting, the when this grant was announced, when we spoke to you about it, there was this ribbon cutting ceremony, and it had all of the muckety mucks, and
Yeah.
including Congressman John Rutherford, who voted for this rescission, but obviously supported the project. We can see a picture if you're watching our live stream right now, where you have Councilmember Ron Salem, Mayor Donna Deegan, you're there, Councilmember Carlucci Jr., and Congressman John Rutherford. And so I guess he's supportive of the project, but still voted to rescind the money.
Yes.
Okay. And what is the explanation that you've gotten about that?
Well, I didn't speak to him personally about why he voted against that, but that bill is bigger than the Emerald Trail.
Sure. Yeah, it includes a lot more.
Yeah.
All right. So there is an event that's coming up that is celebrating the S line, right? It is a 5K, 10K, 1 mile. It's all sorts of
It's a
things.
1, 5K, and 10K. So
Okay.
it's something for everyone. Somebody, maybe I shouldn't say this, but somebody asked if they could bring their dog, and I said, as long as they're, we do that as long as they're on a leash
Uh-huh.
and don't poop on the trail,
Yes, please.
right? Bring your bags. But yeah, it is. So ViStar Credit Union Brian Wolfberg's a runner. And so when we first started talking to them and meeting with them, he's like, "What about a race?"
Oh.
And so it is really our signature event, and it's awesome because it brings out a ton of people to celebrate it. So it's going to be both the Lavilla Link and the S Line Rail Trail.
And it's
Those are the two.
Saturday.
And it's this Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if people want to, they can still sign up.
They can still sign up.
Where do they go to do that? Is that a Groundworks thing or is that a ViStar thing?
Firstplacesports.com.
Oh, sure. Of course.
/ races
All right.
/ Emerald Trail.
Well, they handle all the races, so that's no surprise. Kate Ehas, thanks a lot for coming on today. Appreciate the update, and good luck with everything.
You're welcome.
All right. Up next, 35 years of food rescue. We talk to the head of a local hunger nonprofit about their upcoming birthday gala. Welcome back. A local nonprofit that describes itself as small but mighty is celebrating 35 years of fighting hunger on the First Coast. Here to tell us about the work of food rescue is Kathleen Spears, Executive Director of Waste Not, Want Not. Good morning, Kathleen.
Good morning.
So your group is neither a food kitchen nor a food pantry, which I think is what a lot of people think about when they think of hunger fighting efforts. Tell us a little bit about how the organization began.
Okay. Well, we were founded in 1990 by Deborah Smyers, and she had an idea. She went into a restaurant and saw that there was a lot of leftover food and wondered what happens to that food. And when the manager said, "Oh, we just throw it away at the end of the day," a light went on in her head, and she started to connect the dots between rescuing food from restaurants, grocery stores, farmers, and putting it into the bellies of hungry people. So 35 years ago, we're turning 35 this year. We're celebrating 35 years of fighting hunger. Not that that's anything to celebrate. But that's how it started, with an idea with one woman, and it has since grown into an organization. We just have 3.5 employees, but we have hundreds of dedicated volunteers who make it happen.
It sounds like volunteers really are the machine of this organization. And I would guess that it's not, that it must be pretty labor intensive to rescue food. Where are the places that people can rescue food from? Like, what are the places that you go to and how do you gather it?
So we use our volunteers, and we rescue from about 70 different grocery stores, restaurants, and some farmers and caterers who at the end of the day may have some things left over. So we rescue food that's near date, but it's still good for human consumption. So, and we don't rescue food that's been opened or, like a half-eaten sandwich. We don't do that. But anything that maybe is getting pulled off the shelf because it's almost expiring, that we can grab it. And so our volunteers, a lot of them will use their cars. We do have a box truck that we call Old Faithful because he hasn't given up on us yet, that we use to drive around to places like Trader Joe's and Publix and, different places to rescue the food that they were going to throw away.
You mentioned caterers, and I know that sometimes you're able to glean food from the Jaguars as well.
Yes.
Is this food sometimes that's been prepared, or is this all food that's essentially unprepared, boxed, canned food?
Okay. So when we rescue from the Jaguars, it's prepared food. And so we are able, and the reason why we're not a food bank or a food pantry, we don't store food. So as soon as we get the food, we turn around and get it into the hands of people who help the hungry. So for instance, when we rescued from the Jaguars, we were able to turn it over to an organization that has a soup kitchen that feeds our unhoused neighbors. So, and they got it within the same day that we rescued it from the Jags.
You must have to be rather nimble, I would think, to be able to respond. The Jaguars aren't going to know for sure if they're going to have leftovers. Panera may not have extra baked goods. So how do you set up a cycle to have your volunteers, work productively, but also be available when something just kind of crops up?
Yeah. You're exactly right. We do have to be nimble, and I'm fortunate enough to have a great teammate and our volunteer coordinator and director of engagement. She kind of handles that, and she never her phone. She's so funny. She's like, I don't really get a day off. My phone, I answer my phone 24 hours a day. So it's just whenever we get the call, and then she connects the dots between the volunteers, and then we have someone who manages our mission to make sure it's delivered. It's director of mission delivery, and she gets that food into the hands of people who need it.
So, about how many volunteers do you rely on, and is that something that you continue to look for people to fill those roles?
Absolutely. So we have about 218 really solid daily volunteers. So they're making 17 to 20 rescues a day
Wow.
and rescuing between 4 to 10,000 pounds of food a day. So we always need those kind of volunteers. And then we have about 100 or so more who do special projects. So it might be a group of employees that work for a corporation that'll come in and, beautify our lawn or clean our, we call our food distribution center the castle or something like that. So we have about 300.
Do you take drop-offs if people are wanting to, if they have a small grocery store or if they have some sort of reason that they've got a large amount of some supply?
We can. So we try to get the food in very, very early and out very, very early. So sometimes we're gone by noon or 1 o'clock.
Okay.
So it's better to call first if you have something.
So upcoming is this celebration we mentioned. It's your birthday. So you're going to have this fundraising gala, and it features some recognizable folks from the Jaguars. Tom McManus, I think, Donovan Darius going to be there both. Are people, are just ordinary people supposed to go to this? Is this the kind of thing that you're asking the community to buy tickets to support, or is this more for kind of existing supporters?
Well, we always invite new supporters. So if you've never heard of Waste Not Want Not and you want to learn more and you want to support our work, we definitely invite you to come. It's going to be in Orange Park in Clay County, which is where we're headquartered. And we serve 14 counties in Northeast Florida, including Duval.
And so what is the situation for hunger on the First Coast currently?
It's getting worse. The food insecurity statistics are rising, and that's a problem for me because there's just too many variables that play into that. We have our working poor, our single parents, we have our seniors, we have our veterans. We have these very important groups of people who are just out there trying to make ends meet, and there's just not enough support for them. And so where we try to help, we can't do everything, we can't fix everything, but where we try to help is to provide nourishment, to provide food. So the food insecurity rates are increasing.
And do you think that people are aware of the need that exists outside of people who are truly impoverished?
I don't think so. I think maybe outside of their mind, they're like, oh, there's probably hungry people out there. I'm sure there's unhoused people out there. But I don't think they really realize it. A lot of our volunteers will admit that. They'll say, I had no idea until I started to volunteer and I started to see, the impact. And we're pretty vigilant about posting on social media about where the food goes. And so volunteers are starting to see, oh, wow. So, yeah.
Well, Kathleen Spears, congratulations on 35 years. You can find more information at wastenotflorida.org. Thanks for being here.
You bet. Thank you for having me.
All right, up next, the Jags trounced the Texans in a rare rivalry victory.
Terrell Hogan Law.
I'm Wayne Hogan. When people are hurt through no fault of their own, finding the who, what, when, where, why, and how that led to the accident is critical to proving the truth.
More at TerrellHoganLaw.com. Life South Community Blood Centers, providing blood and patient services to the local hospitals, serving patients in this community. Donating blood with Life South helps save lives. More at lifesouth.org to find a blood drive near you.
The Jacksonville Children's Chorus is holding auditions for kids in rising 2nd through 12th grades. No audition required for younger kids. Rehearsals in Duval, Clay, and St. Johns counties with tuition scholarships available. Information at jackschildrenschorus.org.
Jazz, America's original art form, can be heard 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on WJCT 89.9 HD4. Jacksonville's Jazz Radio can also be heard on the WJCT app or jacksmusic.org.
Want to stay on top of what's happening on the First Coast on your schedule? WJCT News Now delivers the morning report every weekday covering big local stories, plus health news made simple, behind-the-scenes reporting, and community stories all as podcasts you can play anytime. You'll also get a newsletter with new and popular podcast recommendations. Help keep local public media strong. Start your free trial at wjct.org/news.
Welcome back. Well, it was a game that once again came down to the final minutes, but this time it broke in the Jags' favor. Here to recap the Jags' 17-10 win over the Texans is Alessandra Pomprian, sportscaster at News4Jax. Thanks for being here.
No, thank you for having me, and I'm happy that we can talk about Victory Monday.
Yeah, it is nice. And boy, it's like last week's game, but like if they had just pulled it out, right? It kind of had some similarities to the Bengals.
Yeah,
match.
a little, just because, it wasn't going either team's way for basically 3 quarters. I mean, the Jaguars did have the lead, and then, of course, the interception, the Texans touchdown tied it. But then that fourth quarter was so much fun to watch. You know, the Jaguars even said they were like, it wasn't a clean game. Obviously, it was very sloppy, but they got the win. And previously, in years past, when they would have struggles, they weren't really able to overcome that. This team finally is able to overcome those difficulties. And I think that's very promising for Jaguars fans. And I think even the team themselves, they're really proud of themselves for not, backing down and
Not losing steam.
Yeah, not
it's like a
losing steam.
psychological battle.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I think that's the biggest change that I think we've seen from Liam Cohen and his coaching staff is that kind of switch, that mindset shift. And I think that's the most powerful thing that any team could have.
So let's talk some specifics because I looked up it, and you probably know this well, but that they've played 47 times, these two teams. Houston has won 31 of those and the Jags just 16. So they obviously have, it's a rivalry, but it's one that the Jags have been sort of out balanced on. But this ended a 7-game losing streak at home to the Texans. So again, a little psychological boost. And what has, been a strong rivalry between these two teams.
Trevor Lawrence said it after the game. He said, it's no secret we don't like each other.
Yeah.
Obviously, last year kind of added even more emotion and momentum to, this rivalry. Just
because of the hit?
Yeah, because of the hit.
Remind us what happened there.
Yeah, so last year was at the middle of last year, I'd say. Trevor Lawrence was knocked unconscious by Texans defender Azeez Al-Shaair, who played in the game yesterday. So, and
in a hit that was, he got suspended for it.
Yeah, he got suspended. Trevor Lawrence didn't play for the rest of the year because it was a nasty, nasty hit. Yeah, probably one of the worst that the NFL has seen, unfortunately. Yeah, and so yesterday, of course, there were extra emotions because of that. But like Trevor Lawrence said, we don't like each other, but finally we were able to overcome them and to beat them. Like you said, 7 times they've tried, but they haven't. So this is a big win. You want to win at home. That's one of the main priorities is to win at home in front of your home fans. And finally, they were able to do that against an AFC South opponent who's controlled the division the past 2 years. And hopefully this is, one step forward for the Jaguars to now take control of the AFC South.
You said the fourth quarter was fun to watch, and sort of it was, and then it wasn't for a minute because it looked like the Jags were going to sort of do that thing where, Trevor Lawrence threw an interception. The Texans are just marching down the field, about to score, and so it looked like it was going to end up being a loss.
Yes, it did in that point. But I think, Liam Cohen said after, he said there wasn't any finger pointing. It was everyone saying just okay, let's lock in. We still have some time on the scoreboard. Let's do it. And right after that touchdown, Tyson Campbell forced a fumble and Devin Lloyd recovered it. And Jacksonville took over on the 17-yard line. And then, of course, that led to Brian Thomas Jr.'s 46-yard reception to the red zone, and then Travis Etienne's 10-yard rushing touchdown to take the lead. So,
really delivered there in that last bit. Everything good happened.
Yeah, 100%. I think the best part about that drive was Brian Thomas Jr.'s 46-yard reception, just because he's had so many troubles during training camp, during the beginning of the season with dropping passes. And, you could see that obviously frustrated him during the game yesterday. Before that, he was like, he threw his helmet on the sideline, and you could see he was very frustrated. Of course, anyone would be in that position. But after that 46-yard reception, he like spiked the ball, and you could tell he was like, finally, like something. It's like a glimpse of what we saw last year from Brian. And hopefully that can continue and give him a confidence boost, because he is a very good player. Also just a great guy, such a nice guy too. But so you root for him because, off the field he's such a great guy, but he can be a superstar on the field as well.
So they pulled it out. They're going to San Francisco next weekend. What needs to happen? Because obviously this was not a perfect game.
No, it wasn't. No. So today is Monday, so they will go over all of the film from yesterday. And obviously there was a lot of ugly film, even though they won. So they have to correct that. But at this point, what really good teams do is they can stack wins. Of course, you had that little blimp in week 2, but now you got this win against a really good team, the Houston Texans. Now you have to, they're 0-3, so, I shouldn't say really good, but whatever. They need to stack wins. Next, you're going to the 49ers, which is a very good team, and also Mac Jones, who's a Bulls graduate, a Jacksonville native. He was on the Jaguars last year, of course, played when Trevor Lawrence went down. He is playing for the 49ers now. So, maybe some emotions heading into this game. But, yeah, you need to be able to stack wins. So this next one is a big one, not because it's the next one, but because you need to start building momentum in the winning column.
All right. Well, we will be watching it. We'll be talking to you about it. Alessandra Pomprion, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right. And that's our program. Thank you for listening. If you have comments or questions, you can send either to First Coast Connect at WJCT.org. And if you missed anything, you can catch our rebroadcast at 8 o'clock tonight or find our entire archive on your favorite podcast platform. The executive producer of First Coast Connect is David Luckin. Our show is produced by Stacey Bennett. Our associate producer is Isabella Casapau. And on the technical side, we're being helped out for the next few weeks by Michelle Coram and Andrew Wickman. Our theme music is performed by Club de Belugas. Join us tomorrow when we talk to a small-town mayor about changing the perceptions of Palatka. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com.